Works with She working with what? No, and I would. No, where's that,
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you could take your seats, please. It's my pleasure to call the 15th session of the ASCSU Senate to order. First, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're willing and able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll move into the CSU land acknowledgement. Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples. This is also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other Native tribes. We recognize the Indigenous people as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. CSU is founded as a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion, and significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university was built upon. This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment. We'll now move into the swearing in of new senators and associate senators. If that's you, please come to the front, and the Chief Justice will administer the oath of office.
Yeah.
There are a bunch over here. If you don't have one.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway,
So I state your name,
I, Clay Kimberly,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to defend and uphold
to defend and uphold
the rules and regulations
the rules and regulations
set forth by the Constitution
set forth by the Constitution
of the Associated Students of Colorado State University.
of the Associated Students of Colorado State University.
I will rightfully perform
I will rightfully perform
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Chief Justice Zacharias.
Good. I motion to have judicial reports go before gallery input. Just because I have a flight, well, I have to leave to California at 3 o'clock in the morning tomorrow.
Is there a second? Okay, so all those in favor of moving judicial reports above gallery input, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Okay, this motion passes. Now we'll move into our beginning roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Speaker DeSalvo,
Here.
Speaker Pro Tempore Carcelo Perez, Officer Picari, Senator Abernathy,
Here.
Senator Aslan, here, Senator Eby,
Here.
here, Associate Senator Barron, Associate Senator Barton, Senator Bishara, here, Senator Cordero, Senator Correa,
Yeah.
Senator Benson,
joining virtually.
Chair Doyle,
Here.
Senator Epperson,
On Zoom.
Here.
Senator Goldfeld,
Here.
Senator Johnson,
Here.
Senator Juarez,
Here.
Senator Kilburn,
Here.
Senator Kramer,
No, not a presentation. They're just gonna.
Senator Lackey,
Here, sorry.
Senator Kramer. On Zoom.
Senator Lowe, Senator McCall,
Here.
Senator Milka, Senator Nguyen,
Here.
Senator Payeso,
Here.
Senator Pereira, Senator Reese,
Present.
Chair Rencher, Chair Salazar,
Here.
Senator Sanchez,
Here.
Chair Schumer,
Here.
Senator Shetty, Parliamentarian Sinarikar,
Here.
Senator Taylor,
Here.
Senator Thompson, Chair Trout,
Present.
Senator Dietz,
Here.
Senator Ayala,
Here.
Senator Hill,
Here.
Senator Ritter,
Present.
Senator Schmidt,
Here.
Senator McHale, Senator Morgan,
Present.
Associate Senator Jacobs, Senator Melchior,
Here.
Associate Senator Hubley, Senator Lazoya, Senator Weaver,
Here.
Associate Senator Chacon. Here. Senator Belker. Senator Kelly.
Here.
Associate Senator Bernard. Senator Joe. Associate Senator Laffey.
Here.
Senator Nyambe. Associate Senator Saunders. Associate Senator Kelly.
Here.
Associate Senator Lutz.
Here.
Associate Senator Winston. Associate Senator Barbone.
Here.
Senator Wright.
Here.
Associate Senator Torres Doxy.
Here.
Associate Senator Clay Kimberly.
Here.
Fantastic. We'll now move into our consent agenda. Is there any dissent? Okay. President Long.
Couple of things similar to Chief Justice Zacharias at Board of Governors tomorrow down in Denver. So first thing I'd ask is to move executive reports below judicial reports. And the second thing I would ask is to remove Financial Responsibility Act from the agenda because the other author is not here.
Okay, we'll handle both of those individually. So to the first,
He has office rights in the Financial Responsibility Act.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So, so the first thing we'll do is there a second for that motion to move executive reports below judicial? You said, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, this passes unanimously.
Information, there was a dissent to approving the consent agenda. Can you explain what that means, what that will do?
I didn't hear dissent. Was there dissent to the consent agenda?
It was President Long dissenting so he can make an addition to the agenda, but that's been.
Yes, please.
Okay,
Cool, okay, so I was good for a Tuesday moment. So just so that everyone is aware, consent agenda is not necessarily the moment where we are editing the agenda. It's actually where we do that. But just because we edit the agenda does not mean we are dissenting to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is very specifically where minutes, or if, say, we thought a piece of legislation was going to pass really fast. The last time I saw one of those work was Marianne Tiveros's retirement celebration thing. Put it on there, passed really easy because we didn't have to talk about it. We didn't have to do anything. That's what consent agenda is for. We often adjust the agenda in consent agenda because that's where it's easy and we hear the word agenda, so we think about it. But just because someone changes the way the agenda is set up does not mean we are dissenting to the consent agenda. You actually have to say you're dissenting to the consent agenda.
Thank you.
fantastic. So now we will go to, I think, Chief Justice Zacharias. That's how it's reflected. Yes.
Thank all of y'all for giving me this opportunity to go early. I really appreciate it. I have tons of laundry and packing to do. But with that, biggest thing is that we have coffee with the courts next Friday, December 9th, 12 to 3. This time we're ordering more coffee and more hot chocolate, but so all of y'all are aware, we did run out in like the first 30 minutes. So if you want some coffee or hot chocolate in the middle of your day, please get there as close to 12 as possible. Other than that, me and Jorge and the entire Department of Housing and State Law Policy are putting together a U+2 action committee. So next Tuesday, December 6th, will be me or Jorge will be driving a minivan down to City Council to lobby on students' behalf on the U+2 city ordinance. So if you're interested in that, please shoot me or Jorge a message. We'll greatly appreciate that. I think we could fit about 7 people in a minivan. We could get a bigger one. Please don't have me get a bigger one. I'm scared of driving those big things. Other than that, the Supreme Court's busy with some confidential information right now. So if we have anything more of that nature come across our plate, that will not get handled until the spring semester. And just for further clarification, because Jorge thinks I didn't say December 6th. December 6th is the city council meeting that we'll be going to. At 5:50. At 5:50, we'll meet here. If you have any more questions, email me or Jorge, and we'll make sure that we get everyone on the same page. Please be at Coffee with the Court. It is my birthday, so I would love to see all of y'all's lovely faces to celebrate my 22nd. With that, I'll rest.
Thank you. Executive reports. President Long.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good night. So next week we'll be putting up the addressing Anti-Semitism Act. I worked with Caroline Arnolis and Rabbi Gorlick regarding the piece of legislation. And then similar, or I guess everyone saw, the Financial Responsibility Act will also be presented next week. I'm gonna be having, along with Secretary Waller, I'll be meeting with Peter Walk from Rocky Mountain Student Media to talk about the contract. I had a meeting with Shauna DeLuca today to seek a partnership with the global engagement of Disengaged Leader lecture series. Sounds like they're going to be having a couple of prominent women in like high up in state government. So that'll be interesting. I'll be continuing that. Yesterday, I attended the City Council Action Committee. Thank you to Deputy Director Garcia for that, and setting that up.
This past Monday, I had a meeting with VP Blanche Hughes, along with Speaker DeSalvo. She's very pleased with our work, and I think that, yeah, Blanche is very pleased with our work. And then like I said, I'll be away this Thursday and Friday for the Board of Governors. And then finally, I'm working with the fee boards. Marlis Hazelton came to my office the other day. The fee boards will be seeking student input. So we're probably going to have an open forum for UTFAB, UFAB, and ATFAB in the coming days to get more student input for those projects. But beyond that, that is my report. Thank you all for moving exec reports.
I will be short and sweet. So just a little SFRB update. We actually have 4 new members who are getting ratified next week, which I'm very, very happy about and excited. Not 4, 3. Wow, I'm sorry. I looked at you. I'm sorry. You said no. I'm sorry. We have 3 new members getting ratified next week. Next week is also our last visit day for the spring or for the fall semester, and then we will be moving into spring. We will also be having our vice chair elections next week. And there's still time if y'all want to apply and join the board. There is food next semester. That's like my main selling point is food, but you also get a say in how your student fees are spent. So yeah, thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. So this will be quick, just as a heads up, because I'm not going to be here at the next session. The Forever Green t-shirts that everyone gets as a freshman, and we hand them a lot of them out throughout the year, are designed by students. And so we'll be looking for student input. So if over winter break, you want to design a t-shirt, just design it with a white color on a green background, and then send an email to me. There'll be a lot more information coming out about this, and I'll be talking about it again after the break. But just if you have a little bit of time, I would encourage all of you and anybody that wants to. I'm not super artistic, but I still like messing around and making, designs every now and again. So please do. I'm excited to see everyone's designs. Have a great night. Thank you.
Hi friends, Grace Kringle, Director of Marketing. I'll keep it short and sweet. Last Senate session, we ratified Shreya as our new Deputy Director of Graphic Design. So if you have any requests, make sure to send it to the marketing email and the graphic design email. Both Shreya and Alejandra have access to that graphic design email. We have a full page in the Collegian for the graduation edition coming in to shout out some of our graduating seniors this semester. I'm also continuing to submit those weekly ads as well. World AIDS Day is tomorrow. I don't think Alex is here, but oh no, is tomorrow the 1st? Sorry, I'm all tomorrow's okay, so it is tomorrow. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. So we designed some marketing material for that. Be sure to grab a ribbon. So we did a whole bunch of marketing work for that. Shreya designed a poster for Coffee with the Courts. That's coming up. Marcus went over that. We're also going to print some more RAM recognition cards. So for those of you that don't know, there's going to be cards, I think probably at the front desk or somewhere in the office. If there's someone who stands out to you that has been doing a really good job and that you want to recognize them, take one of those cards, fill it out. Just our way of, thanking everybody in this fantastic organization. You just mentioned the Forever Green t-shirt competition, so we'll be marketing that. And then the big thing I wanted to talk about is that this Saturday, a couple of us will be headed down to join CSU in the Denver Parade of Lights. So that'll be really exciting to have student government representation there. That's something I'd love to see happen annually. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions or concerns, just send the marketing email. Thanks, y'all.
Hello, everybody. I'll keep it relatively short. It's nice to see you all again. So essentially, as Rob stated, next week we'll be meeting with Pete to begin the negotiations for the next contract. It's a 3-year cycle, so the 3 years is coming to an end. So we'll begin negotiating the contract next week. So if you want to say anything about the contract or want things changed, please reach out to either Rob or I. Other than that, the chief of staff and I have switched some departments, so I'll be in charge of academics now, and the chief of staff will be in charge of diversity and inclusion. If you're curious about what departments I'm already in charge of, it would be academics now, traditions and programs, Then it would be marketing. And then finally. Pardon? Yeah, I said traditions and programs, I believe. Governmental affairs, thank you, Evan. So everything else, that's Hayden's thing, but those four are mine. So if you have any questions about them, please reach out to me, or you can just reach out to them in general, they'll be more than happy to answer you. Other than that, if you have anything you want to submit for a collegiate article at all, please send that to me. If you want to get in contact with me at all, please talk to me. I would love to set you up with the media. Yeah, have a wonderful night, Senate. I enjoy all of you. Have a great day.
Is it start recording after?
Okay. You're good to go, Alex.
Iconic. Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Silverhart, Director of Health and Wellbeing. And I just kind of want to provide some reminders, and thank you, Grace, for bringing up World AIDS Day. But just as a reminder, that is tomorrow, December 1st. There are ribbons available in the office. I don't know if Jess is in the space, but if she is able to hand out ribbons, that would be great. If you want to take extra ribbons to give to your friends, that would be fantastic too. We're trying to get as many people as physically possible to wear ribbons tomorrow, just to kind of show you support the cause, and especially the development of more preventative and treatment options for AIDS. As of right now, there is no cure for AIDS, as many know, but they are working towards developing cures and other preventative options. We are in need of volunteers tomorrow to help hand out ribbons. So if anyone is interested in helping us, please message me on Slack or send me an email. We also have a free movie tomorrow night. Charlie has been a huge help with all of the World AIDS Day planning. But that movie is going to be The Normal Heart, which is also something that is being performed by the CSU theater department in the spring. So if you're interested in seeing that theater performance, it might be good to see the movie beforehand. There will be free popcorn and soda. And then lastly, but also very importantly, there will be free HIV testing within the Pride office from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I've also had a few senators reach out to me regarding mental health. So there will be a meeting specifically for ASCSU and mental health projects this upcoming Monday, December 5th at 12 p.m. in the conference room. And there should be also a representative from the health network there as well. Lastly, or second last, I'm going to start planning the drag show for the spring and working with other individuals that had helped with the planning last year, which includes the Pride office, RAM events, and a few other entities on campus. So if you are interested in helping with that cause, please message me as well. We are going to be needing a lot of people because it is one of the biggest events that CSU does for the year. And then lastly, my deputy director, Kylie Weiss, has worked on RAM recognition cards. So if you would like to recognize someone in the ASCSU space that you feel like is working really hard, or someone that you just appreciate because they provide you support, there are those RAM recognition cards within the office. So please make use of those. It was something that we did last year. It's a way to really spread positivity and show other people that you truly care. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to gallery input. If there's anyone from the gallery wishing to speak at this time. Seeing none, we do have a guest speaker today, Mari Strombaum from Housing and Dining.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Maureen Strombaum. As was said, you did an awesome job pronouncing my name. So I need to give you kudos for that because most people don't really, because it's just a weird name. But anyway, I'm excited to be here with all of you. I have been the Executive Director of Housing and Dining for the last 4 years. And prior to that, I was Associate Executive Director for 10 years. So I have lots of experience in that department. And in a previous iteration of my career, I actually was an advisor to ASCSU for 7 years. So I feel like I'm kind of coming home in a lot of ways, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy to be here because I want to answer any questions that you might have about housing and dining, any concerns that you might have about things. If there's information that you want to share with me, for me to take back to my staff. For those of you who know a lot about my department, housing and dining is the largest department on campus. University housing is a part of my operation. Of course, that's the group that runs on the residence halls and the apartments on campus. Residential Dining Services operates all of the dining centers on campus. Ramcard office is part of Housing and Dining Services. The Mountain Campus is a part of Housing and Dining Services. We have our own in-house facilities, HR, workplace inclusion and talent management, projects and outreach. I know it, communications and sustainability. And I know it has some people because I always do that. I think that gives you a sense of the breadth of the department that I work with. So I don't have a presentation for you. I know that some questions were sent my way, but I thought rather than starting with those, because they were sent a while ago, things may have changed, or maybe things that are more pressing, more urgent. So I think we can just open up that list and I'll address questions. So.
Fantastic. We'll start with the first raised placard. I believe I saw Officer Bukhari and then folks over here. So go ahead, Officer Bukhari.
Hello, man. Faraz Bukhari. I'm an RA.
No,
Durward Hall. And I just like to establish for the record, is your favorite hall at Durward Hall?
I don't have a favorite hall, just like I don't have a favorite child. Right? All the halls are wonderful in their own way.
I mean,
Rated.
I can't choose. It's like I can't choose between my kids. Sorry, you know?
it's definitely up there, right?
It's, Durham's awesome. Yeah. It's
On the
right
record,
next to the
on the
Cultural
record.
Center where my office is. So we're neighbors.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Senator Kilburn.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's like a plan in place or kind of actions being taken to make the accessibility of kind of the residential halls better, because I know some of them just aren't as accessible for people who need that access.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So when we do any major renovation projects in the halls, we work on accessibility issues. That is the time to do it, right? And it's been a while. So any of our newer halls have been built with elevators, more accessible spaces in them. A number of years ago, we added 4th floors to Parmley Hall and Braden Hall. When we did that, we put elevators in those buildings to make the upper floors of those buildings more accessible. We worked to try to move laundry rooms to make those things more accessible. So that's always a part of our plan. But in terms of when it happens, it all depends on when we get in to make some adjustments to those buildings. Yeah.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Senator Hill.
Good evening, Director Stromblum. Thank you for coming today. I remember I emailed you a few weeks ago. I got a code. Someone's misbehaving. I got a list of some questions to try and refresh my memory. So I emailed you some of the questions. I'm just going to re-ask them. Okay. I asked regarding the food conditions at the dining halls. There have been reports of what I've heard from my constituents about, like not fully cooked chicken, or some things like that. How are y'all addressing food safety to make sure that students can be able to not get sick? So I know that can be a disruption to classes or whatever.
Absolutely can be, yeah. And food safety is an absolute priority for our Director of Residential Dining Services. Whenever we receive a report of anything that's awry, right? Something in the food or something that may be undercooked or something like that, we immediately reach out to environmental health and safety here on campus. They have inspectors that come in. They do regular surprise inspections at all of our dining centers already. So we never know when they're coming in. They check the food temps, they check our temp logs, they check the quality of the food. But when there's a specific complaint, they'll come in and check on that dining facility and they'll investigate. So it's, if any of you or anybody you know ever says or sees what's happening, it's really important for the dining manager to know that in the moment so that they can capture that food and it can be then tested. Environmental health and safety will follow up with the individuals who filed the complaint. One of the challenges that we've had is there were a number of pictures going around about raw chicken last year primarily that was being shared on social, and we couldn't ever find who posted the initial. There was one that was posted when EHS did their investigation. It wasn't actually a picture of food in a residence hall, even though it was attributed to one of our halls. So we want to know, because we don't ever want to give students food that will make them sick. That's part of why we have a registered dietitian who's there to work with students who may have food allergies or sensitivities. There's HACCP is the, I don't remember the acronym, but it's a food safety process that we follow to make sure our food is cooked to the right temperature, stored at the right temperature. And if any of our coolers or heating units are malfunctioning, we get those fixed right away, but it's important for us to know. So please let us know. Nobody will get in trouble for that. We want to know so we can make things better.
Thank you. And I know that most food places, they have like an inspection that you inspect for food inspections, all that. And do y'all have that public for
Yeah.
anybody, the public to see?
Yeah, so all of the inspections Environmental Health and Safety, or EHS, is a certified service. I'm not sure what the right term is. So just like others will go out and do it through Larimer County and do inspections at restaurants and things through Larimer County. Our inspectors go through the same certification process, and all of their inspection results are posted in the same place all the county results are posted. So it's through Larimer County that you can find those inspection results.
And I have a question regarding, let's see, EpiPens. I know that there's been a lot of constituents came up to me and say that y'all don't allow RAs to administer EpiPens for those who are, for example, having allergic reactions. And I even have my roommate or a friend of mine who wants to write a report on a pretend proposal for his class about providing EpiPens for RAs to use. Explain to me please the reasons why y'all won't like have RAs and have, like, for example, an EpiPen that they can use on people who are like having allergic reactions to something. And I think that when I was looking at the law, I think that RAs are able to do that. I mean, not RAs, but someone else is able to administer it to someone legally.
So we work really closely with risk management, safety and risk management, to determine what are the best practices. They do not recommend that we have staff that have EpiPens. They don't recommend that we keep EpiPens in our dining center. Part of that is because of the short shelf life of the EpiPen. Another big part of it is our RAs are not trained to be first responders. And so to put that burden of response on the RAs, I believe, is not something we should be asking of our RAs, especially when we have first responders here on campus that can get to any one of our residence halls or dining centers within 2 to 3 minutes at the most. And so what we have been encouraged to do through risk management is, instead of trying to provide that help ourselves, is that we defer to the experts and train our staff to call 911 if there's ever an emergency, so that the first responders can get there and actually respond to whatever the situation may be versus what somebody might perceive it to be who's not a trained first responder.
Have y'all considered perhaps like having like an extra training for RAs to do first respond, not like kind of like, like for example, CPR 80 or some first responder training?
So RAs can get that if they want, but that's not required of their job. And so from my perspective, I think what we ask of RAs is already a pretty heavy lift. And I don't think it's appropriate to add first responder duties on top of that.
I have one more question. It's regarding facility management. It's for example, I know that there have received a lot of like my colleagues and constituents have reports of that elevators, for example, like in the towers, have broken down or what a lot. I mean, who manages the elevator functions and on those particular housing in general?
Facilities management, which is a central organization that we partner with, manages all of the elevator maintenance and repair contracts for the whole campus. So the company that they have contracted with for all elevators in the student center, everywhere else on campus, is the same company that we work with. And our on-staff duty have their number to call. So whenever an elevator goes out, as soon as we're made aware of that, we call that in. If it's in a facility where there's maybe only one elevator servicing that area, that would be prioritized over, say, in Durwood where there's more than one elevator. So there's other backups, but we put that call in as soon as we're made aware of it.
Are there like usual?
Senator Hill, your time has expired. I would entertain a motion to give you a 2-minute extension. If someone wants to make that motion.
I'd like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of giving Senator Hill a 2-minute extension on this Q&A period, say aye. All those opposed? Abstentions.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Second question is, how often does management is there like regular inspections of these?
Yeah.
Okay, and how
That's
often?
required by law. I don't know because that contract is managed by facilities management. It's not managed by my department. But campus manages that and they do regular inspections of all the elevators on campus.
Are reports given out in the public regarding these inspections?
I don't know for sure. I would guess that those reports may be stored over in facilities management. That's a guess, but since they're responsible for the elevators, that's why I'm guessing that.
Okay, I think that's all I have. Thank you so much for answering the questions. And that was a lot.
That's
Appreciate it.
great. No, thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Wright.
Hi there. Thank you so much for coming in today. So I had just a question regarding, I don't quite know if there was an update or anything about not enough housing for freshmen this year. I know we had a massive influx, like I think it was the biggest class we've had here. And I just wanted to know what has happened or what needs to happen in order to get students in, because I know there were some students who were in like hotel rooms, which is great, but when and if they're back on campus.
Sure. So we had perfect storm. I don't know if that's how to describe it this year. So we not only, let me back up a little bit. We put in place about 2 years ago that we needed to do a major renovation on Westfall Hall. We needed to replace the windows. Westfall Hall was built in the early 1970s, and those crank out windows were original to when the building was built. So you might imagine the stress that our Fort Collins winds have been putting on those crank out windows since 1972 or whatever the year was that it was built. So some of the window mechanics are starting to fail. We needed to replace that. And so that project had been in place for 2 years. Our numbers for projecting occupancy for this fall were wonky because of COVID. So as we were working with admissions to say, what are you anticipating for the number of first year students? What are we anticipating for occupancy based on what we're hearing from admissions? We thought we should be good, even with Westfall offline. We track applications for housing. Typically by Memorial Day, we've got a pretty good guess on how many students will be living in the halls in the fall. And at Memorial Day, we're looking good. And then an anomaly happened this summer where more applications came for students to attend CSU and more housing applications came in. And we saw a spike in the summer unlike anything we'd seen pre-COVID. What will be interesting to see is if that's a new trend or if that was just a one-time spike. So that put us in the situation of not having enough beds for first year students that late. So we did a contract with the Best Western on College, and we have rented out that whole hotel. So there's no guests staying there. The only people there are CSU students. And we did that for the safety of our students that were staying in that location. I believe it's been a little while since I looked at the numbers, but the last I looked is we were at about 106 students still living there. We started with about 140 students living there. Those students will no longer be living there come spring semester. So we've contracted with a storage and moving company. They'll be working with any of the students that don't want to take everything home. If they want to take everything home with them, great, they can. If they don't want to, we have contract with the storage and moving company. They'll pick up their items from the hotel. We'll store it for them. And then once we've determined where their new assignment will be on campus for spring semester, the company will deliver their all their items to that space. And that's cost that we're covering. That's not a cost that the students will be asked to cover. And I'm very confident that we'll have plenty of room for those students this spring. Typically, we have between 200 and 300 students that leave at fall semester and they'll come back for spring. So we'll have plenty of space for them.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Chair Westlawn.
Hi. So a lot of my constituents, and I serve the Pride office, there's been a lot of talk and discussion within the office about not having enough housing for gender nonconforming and trans students, and that some of the housing that we do have for them is not as safe as it has been advertised to be. I do know that the Pride Leadership Council has had a meeting with a housing and dining official and that they have made some steps. Can you give us a rundown on like if there's any possibility to expand all gender housing or the securities around it, please?
Yeah. we're always open to changing programs so that we can meet the needs of our current students. So I'm not sure who that conversation was with. I'm glad that there was a conversation, and that would be with the university housing staff. And I think for them to hear what challenges some of our students have been facing is going to be important. Any ideas or suggestions on how to mitigate those things from happening, what we can do to improve the experience, all of that will be important. And now is the time to have those conversations as we're planning for assignments for fall, right?
So we were able to meet with housing and dining official higher up. I cannot remember their name for the life of me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we recently saw that they had sent out an email to residents of the Summit Hall, all gender and gender non-conforming floors specifically, talking about one of the concerns that a lot of the students had, which was restricting access. If it used to be the access for the entire building could go to those floors, and that's not safe. But there is also like still a bunch of concerns. So we know there's tangible steps being taken, but there's in a way not enough, because there's still a large amount of bias-related incidents towards queer and gender non-conforming students. Is there any like tangible steps that you can possibly give that's beyond just filing a bias report and hoping for the best?
One of the things I've seen over the years is that CSU is a microcosm of the greater society, right? So work that we do, not just in housing and dining, but campus-wide. Work that we do with our current first-year students, all of our students. Here's our population model. We work with folks who try to provide opportunities for education, for understanding, for empathy, for growth, for learning. And hopefully we achieve some progress, right, by May, and then we do a reset. And we've got 6,000 brand new students living in our homes that haven't lived with us before, who are learning with them what they've learned in high school and what they've learned in their families. And we start over, right? I can also say, given how old I am, that we don't always go all the way back to the beginning, the starting line, right? So I have seen that starting line slowly move over my lifetime, too slowly. But I think that's the challenge for me, is try to figure out what are those things that we can do that make environments welcoming and safe and comfortable and celebratory when you've got a population that goes through a revolving door every year. And anybody who has ideas on that is welcome, because we need new ideas. We need new approaches. We need new ways to make it those things. So I don't have an answer, but I want us to find one, right? So.
Real quick before I think my time is up, would you be open to having housing and dining work with various, like the Pride Center and various other SDPS offices to try and come up with more tangible solutions for our students?
Yeah, and yes.
All
We've done that in the past, and you always want to be able to do that, because I think having multiple perspectives on what we do and how to do it is the only way we're going to come up with better answers. Right? Yeah, please, yeah.
Thank you so much. I yield.
Thank you, Associate Senator Barbone.
Hi, hello. I'm currently staying in Kenyon right now, and I just want to ask like a few questions about like the dining halls and everything. So the first question I have is like, how do you guys train your new employees to handle like the grills, or is there like a certain person that handles the grills and the cooking mainly?
So
That's
yeah,
very
so
confusing.
my director of residential dining services would know much more about that than I do.
Okay,
What I can tell you at a high level is that I know that for our student staff, we have student managers who do the training for the student staff. For our full-time staff, we've got unit managers that work with them, but I don't know the details about how long or exactly what, or I just don't have that. But I know that Liz Poor, who's our director of residential dining services, would be happy to have a conversation.
Okay, yeah, because usually when I go eat, sometimes the food is raw.
Okay.
And I find that very concerning, because I know there are students that you guys mainly focus on hiring students, because it's just, you need more students, and it's a lot of help for dining halls and everything, especially with cleaning processes and cleaning up after students and just cooking and basic necessities. It's just, I want to know like who does mainly handle
Well,
the
I can-
cooking.
I can add a little bit more to that too, is we have been understaffed and full-time staff since COVID hit.
Yeah. I
And so it's just
understand
like, you know, any other restaurant you go to, like, you still see be patient, we're understaffed, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. And we recently raised our student staff wages to start at $50 an hour and hope that we could attract more students to work with us because we've also been short on student employees. So you may go into the Foundry or Ramshorn and see some of the stations are closed. If they're closed, it's probably because we don't have enough staff to open every venue that day. But I would also ask if you are there and you see food that is undercooked, please ask to speak to a manager and show the manager that food so that we can do something about it. Because if we don't know about it, we don't know that something needs to be done, right?
I also have another question too. How does housing work for second years? And I know most people, they tend to move into apartments or they stay in the dorms. I just wanted to know exactly how that works if you are to stay in the dorms.
We love to have returning students stay in the hall. So we have been looking at the number of beds that we can make available for next year. And we're going to be doing some reconfiguring of some of our rooms to make sure that we have enough spaces for as many students who want to return to the halls to be able to stay there, as well as for all of our new incoming students. And our goal is also to be able to accommodate all transfer students that would want to live on campus. And so we historically have around 500 returning students that stay in the halls. That number's been up to 700 some years, sometimes around 450. But yeah, we want to be there to support CSU students. That's our job. So first year returning, all are welcome.
So are there like certain halls that are just for first years, or are there some for second years, third years, fourth years?
So we don't have any residence halls that are only for older students. So every hall right now would be wherever people want to live, right?
Okay.
But Aggie Village Apartments, once you've completed your 1-year live-in requirement in the halls, you are eligible to apply to live in the apartments in Aggie. We don't currently have any residence halls that are only for older students.
All right, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Correa.
Hello, Mari.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
So I think you already know my questions right now. So it's mainly regarding break housing and the food options over there. So just to give everybody within the Senate some more context, last year, me, Mari, Sanskar Vyas and Benton Rosler, during our meetings, we discussed about break housing and food options over there. The way it was last year was that residents, when they lived over the break, had to spend $20 a night to live there and $20 that would go towards round cash that they could use at dining halls. And after we had our first discussion, we had ransacked the entire dining hall open, where students could go and actually access healthy food, right? Like rice, and chicken, and quinoa, salads, all that stuff. But the very next break, the dining halls were closed, just the express location was open, and students didn't really have healthy food options. All they had was burgers and fries, and that's not real food. Coming to this year, the $20 round cash was completely taken off, and now students are asked to pay $40 a night to live in their own room over break.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, if you go to see the students that live on campus over break, it's usually due to some reason. Maybe they cannot afford to go home. Maybe home is in another country. Maybe they're having issues at home. It could be anything. So usually students that live on campus live there because of some bad reason that's going on, or regarding finances. Yet we asked them to pay, or you all asked them to pay $40 a night. And last year there was $20 that could go towards round cash, but now that doesn't happen either. So at this point, it is very expensive for students to live on campus over break. It comes up to like $200 for the entire break for them to live in their own room. Why was this change made on the contrary to the discussions we had last year?
So I'm going to give some history because I think history is important. And you might not agree with me, but I did, right? So there were many years when all the residence halls closed over every break. Students had to figure out where to go, right? Thankfully, we realized that's a really bad thing. Because like you said, we have students who are international students, we have students that maybe can't go home for one reason or another, students who may be aged out of the foster care system, so they don't even have a home to go to, a variety of different reasons, right? So then we looked at, okay, do we keep some halls open for breaks? What does that be? And we've been trying to figure out ever since then, which was probably 12 years ago. How do we feed people in a way that works? Keeping an all-you-can-eat dining center open or breaks, we lose so much money. And so when we first started keeping halls open, we charged every resident for those days. So whether you stayed on campus or you went home, you were paying for that day. We got feedback from the students and said, that's not fair. There's maybe 200 out of 6,000 of us are actually staying on campus. Why am I paying for this other person to stay there? We think it makes more sense that if you need to stay, like we should all be charged lower rate. And if you need to stay, then you pay additional to stay there. That's how we settled on that model. We've tried having the all you care to eat open. We've tried having the express open. We heard from you and others in ASCSU that you didn't really like having to get them cash to buy food, feel like it would be cheaper to buy your own and prepare your own food. So that's what we tried this fall, right? So you keep trying different things to see what will work. Now, the reason the price stayed the same at $40. So what would happen is we would take charge $40 per night that students were staying on campus. And of that 40, we would then load $20 on RAM cash onto the student's card, spend here in the student center, to spend in Express, whatever. This year we didn't do that. But that $40 rate was set in 2019. Food costs escalated during that time. Utility costs escalated. Wages escalated. A lot of things escalated, but we didn't increase those rates in 2020 or in 2021 because we knew that COVID had had a major financial impact on a lot of students. As we were looking at what those costs are for us to keep every residence hall open this past fall break, we didn't close any of them. In past, we've closed some and then said, and if you live in this hall that's closed, like, so we would let students know in advance. These are the halls that are open over break. If you live in this hall and you need a place to stay, we're going to transfer you to an open room in this hall that's open. This fall, we didn't do that. We let every residence hall stay open. And we looked at the cost of doing that. To have the front desk staff, to have duty staff available, to pay for utilities, to pay for all of those things. And that's why we left it at $40, because we need to recover some of our costs. We didn't recover all of our costs because even of those 200 students-ish that were here over break, most of them weren't here for every night of break. They might have been here for 3 nights or 4 nights or 2 nights, but not the whole time.
The math does add up on that, but as there was still there was one express location open on campus. I see particularly me, I'm an RA, so it doesn't matter to me. My meals swipes are free, my rent is free there, so it doesn't matter to me. But it matters to my constituents because a good chunk of international students live on campus over break. They cannot go home. My residents have complained to me about the extra costs and the fact that if they had to eat on campus, it was still just burgers and fries, and this number is not included in RAM cash. Sure. The increase in food cost has nothing to do with the money that was charged. It was the food cost
Not this year.
not this year. So it was not included in the $40 that was charged. Food was completely different. So while that being said, that food was a separate charge, why were there no healthy options at campus?
So,
It was still burgers,
right.
fries.
So what we're doing an assessment of right now is how many people are actually eating with us. Part of that $40, even though we didn't go towards food, went towards keeping the express station open because we had to pay staff to be there, whether anybody ate with us or not. We had to order food, whether people ate it or not. And so with the staff, we're looking at what is food that has a good, what do I say, not shelf-life long term, but I think, you know, like I can make this and I can keep it warm for a while and it'll still taste good versus I can make this and then after 10, 15 minutes, it's not going to be good anymore. Right? So looking at those options, what we're doing right now is an assessment of how many people actually use RAM cash over the break, how many people use meal swipes that they purchased for break, how many people actually ate in the express station, because the original proposal was we're just going to close everything and then students come in the halls and they can shop for their own food and make their own food. Then the decision was made, well, that might not work for everybody. So let's say you just want to shop for and make your own food, you got that option. If you want to eat in the express station, we'll be open to give you some options. So that was how we settled that this fall.
Okay, and
Senator Correa, your time has expired.
that's fine. Never mind. We'll talk later.
You can always talk there.
The next person on the speakers list is me. I'm sure we're all aware of the freshman 15. I gained the freshman 25. I blame the ice cream in Braden personally. But with that being said, all the other dining halls have ice cream, either soft serve or ice cream in the tubs, except for Ramshorn. And so I was just curious if.
There's ice cream rams, right?
Mm-mm.
Is it taken out? Oh, it used to be. Dang, I'm sorry about that.
So my question was, if the Senate were to write a bill funding an ice cream machine to put in Ramshorn, is that possible?
So I think a better question would be to find out why there's not ice cream, because we used to have soft serve in Ramshorn. Obviously, being lactose intolerant, I don't pay attention to where there is ice cream or not, right? So that's what I didn't know. But I think that's a question that I can ask my dining manager, is just say, why is that been removed, right? Find out that question, because you don't need to fund our equipment. We can fund our own equipment, right? We need to do the right thing for our students. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And that question wasn't out of like selfish desire of wanting ice cream. I'm away from the residence halls.
But you can always,
I'm just looking out for those rams who are coming after me.
you can always come back.
Vice President Sandoval.
Okay, yeah, it works now. So I have a couple questions. First one, kind of going back to what you said about students and the Best Western, about how they're not going to be there during the spring semester, you're moving them out. Just hypothetically, what if kind of thing, if you don't have the rooms for those students or the beds for their students, then what is the plan?
We don't have another plan because we're positive we will have them for them. There's no question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question has to do with Meridian and how that was getting started, but then, you know, COVID hit and it stopped. I know that there have been some projects around campus that had to be delayed or stopped altogether because of COVID. But I was wondering if you or your team have any plans on restarting that, completing it. Essentially, what are your plans for that?
Yeah. So we're still trying to figure that out. So we hit pause on Meridian Village, the big empty lot right over here, right? Where, yeah, that one, right? Spring of 2020 because of COVID. And we have hit pause on it yearly since then. We need to make a decision in January on what we're going to do. So I have asked folks in my HDS facilities area to hire a firm to do structural engineering analysis on Allison Hall, Newsom Hall, Edwards Hall, and Ingersoll Hall to see if it would be possible to add fourth and fifth floors to those halls, similar to what we did on Braden and Parmalee a number of years ago. And then to get cost estimates on what that would be. So we can make a decision on what's the best use of student money. Is the best use to build new with Meridian, or is the best use to add on to current buildings on campus? Now, we know that regardless of which way we go, we've got to add more dining. Our dining capacity is really stretched. And so our dining staff are also looking at what are other ways to feed students? What are the new trends? Do we need another all-you-can-eat dining center? Do we want something different? So we'll be figuring out in January, kind of, are we going to put pause on Meridian for another year and keep pursuing some other things? Do we want to pursue it in the same way that we pursued it in the past, which thank goodness we didn't start building before COVID hit, because that has really saved us. But the plan was to start building on that flat lot. And then once that was done, we would deconstruct Newsom, and then we finished the Meridian Village project where Newsom currently is, and that would include an all-you-can-eat dining facility. An option could be that we say rather than doing it in 2 phases, maybe we do it in 3, 4, 5 phases. And so those are all things that we'll be looking at. So it's just facilities folks, my leadership team and I will work with facilities management, and we'll work with our design build team that we've contracted from Meridian Village to try to make those decisions. So it's gonna be an empty lot for a while. Even if we decide right now that we wanted to build Meridian Village, we've got to do some refreshing things, but we're still trying to figure out what's the best way to meet the demand for enrollment projections.
And then my final question, and I apologize if you had answered it already. If you did, I apologize. Kind of like trying to figure out how to word it, but last semester, I had a couple friends who lived in the dorms, and I don't remember exactly which dorms. But they were saying that they were getting sick because of mold within the dorms, like within the carpets, and how they weren't being properly cleaned. How do you, when like students move out, what are the steps that you take to ensure that the dorms are clean and sanitized and free of mold and ready for new students to move in without the risk of getting sick?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer that plus more. So after students move out in the spring, our crews go through and do a deep clean of every room, and that gets it ready for our summer conference guests. So we do a pretty good, not counting COVID years, but otherwise we do a pretty good summer conference business here, summer camps, different conferences, that type of thing. And then as the conferences wrap up, we always build in a minimum of 2 weeks between the last conference and when the first students would move in. It's often longer than that because we don't use every hall up until that date. But as halls vacate, then we go in and we do another deep clean to make sure that it's ready for the students when they arrive. We also then work really closely with the Environmental Health Services with EHS. So whenever there's a complaint about mold, we bring them in to do mold testing. And so they'll grow a culture in their lab. They then set up the dishes for that culture in the space. Typically takes them between 5 and 7 days to get them results back in those cultures. And then they share that with us. We just did one right before break. We're doing another one right now because of complaints. What I can share with you is that in the, what is it now, almost 15 years that I've been in leadership of housing and dining services, we've never had molds of concern come back. Oftentimes when students move here from more humid places, they and their families have a lot of concern about black mold because of the arid climate here. That's not something that we typically see. We've seen that once in all my experience at CSU, and that was in one of our apartments where a child in the apartment turned on the water in the tub as the family was getting ready to leave for vacation. And so there is a lot of moisture in an apartment in the winter where there was a lot of heat. The family came in and there was mold all over that apartment. That's the only one I'm aware of and all the time I've been working here. What we often hear from environmental health and safety is that if you're moving from another state, you may be moving into a region where you have allergies you didn't know you had. So you may be allergic to juniper, but you didn't know that because you didn't have juniper where you lived before. When you're living in the residence halls, you're living in what's referred to as congregate housing. So you're sharing this space with literally hundreds of people and germs are being shared. It reminds me a little bit of when my kids went to daycare and they got sick all the freaking time. And then they moved to elementary school and got sick all the time. And then they moved to junior high and got sick all the time. And then high school and got sick all the time. But once you're there for a while, you kind of level out. And so that's the other piece that oftentimes happens. And any concerns that students have about mold, we take really seriously. And so again, as soon as we're aware of that, we will contact environmental health and safety to have them do that testing. And we'll also bring our crews in to do a real good deep clean to make sure that anything that's there, whether it's allergens or whatever, are removed. So, and then we also work with students to help educate them on ways that they might do more to help keep their environment cleaner too. So, long answer, but hopefully it's what you're looking for.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. So on the clock, guest presentations have 45 minutes for the bylaws. We now have 5 minutes and 50 seconds left. The bylaws don't account for any time extensions, so we have 2 options. After the 5 minutes is up, we could just end the guest presentation, or we could vote to suspend the bylaws. Right, I heard the ground. So I guess we'll just continue on with the questioning. Fair? Okay. Senator Johnson.
Awesome, thank you for coming. I have like 3 questions. My first one is, how do we establish the dining hall hours?
So that is established by the leadership team in residential dining services based on what they see as demand and what we hear from students. And so it's hard to keep value-care to eat facility open if you've only got 3 people coming in. And so they watch those traffic patterns and then also from feedback from students. And so hopefully you all know about text and tell those you live in the halls. And if you got suggestions, text and tell us.
Okay, my second question is, I have noticed that there are classes like labs that go the entire length of the dining hall dinner hours. And I was wondering if there was a way to extend the dining halls, at least like ones that we know are like close to campus, by just 30 minutes, so that if the lab goes full time, that people can still come and get food and not have to use our express options.
So that would be a good conversation or something good to put in text and tell. It'd also be a great conversation to have with our dining staff. So as I said, Liz Poor is the name of our director of residential dining services. She's always open to talking to students and giving feedback. You know, to-go meals are always an option too, if you want to get a to-go meal at lunch that you can warm up for dinner. But she would be the one to specifically talk about that because she and her staff do so much.
Okay, and my last question is housing aware that in community hall buildings like Edwards, anyone on the same floor can get into both bathrooms on the same floor? So like, if I live on Edwards and I'm on the 2nd floor, I can get, like on the female side, I can get into the male bathrooms on the same floor?
We are aware of that, and that was done so that if you have a guest whose gender identity is other than your own, you can help them access the restroom.
Okay, and could they not just go to the downstairs ones?
Could be. And you know, and if there's ever concerns with that, let us know.
Okay.
We can revisit that policy for sure.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Trout.
How much time do I have on the?
3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Just really quickly. Oh, this one first. Regarding the parking situation for new and current students at CSU, if y'all decide to continue with the Meridian project, what are other parking places on campus that would work?
So I am not the director of parking and transportation.
I know, but in the
So-
limited understanding of that.
Yeah. So the parking that's currently on the Meridian Village site was a request by Parking and Transportation Services to temporarily use that space until we determine how we need to use it. So it will be up to them to determine what they will do if we build on it.
Awesome, and I'll send you an follow-up email with
Awesome.
other questions that I have, because there's not gonna be enough time to answer them, so thank you, I yield.
And I will just say, please, all of you, like if you have questions that you wanted to ask me and you didn't get a chance, I am happy to come back to talk with all of you, or you can set time to talk to me or email me questions. I'm here. I'm here for you all. That's why I work on campus.
For members, I'll put her email in the Slack channel, so you'll have access to that.
Thank you, Senator Taylor.
People have gotten to all the questions that I was going to ask, so
All
thank
right.
you, and I yield.
Fantastic. Associate Senator Lutz.
So I live in all gender housing, and if there's too many people that apply for it because it's application based, what do you do for the people that apply? And like, how do you choose who gets in?
I don't know that we've ever had that.
Okay,
Yeah. So I don't know how to answer that because I don't think it's ever happened.
okay,
At this point, yeah.
all right, thank you, I yield.
Yeah.
Thank you. Senator Sodi.
Yeah, so I don't think there's going to be enough time to cover this, but I actually worked at the Foundry for 2.5 years, and I was even a supervisor.
Uh-huh.
And there are a number of things that I can bring to your attention that
Okay.
have to be addressed.
That would be great.
Because the working conditions there were inhuman. There's plenty of incidents that I've firsthand experienced and witnessed.
That I would greatly appreciate that.
Yes, so for 2 years, I had no problem, and then the management changed.
Okay.
And I do not know what was wrong with this management, maybe ideological reasons, their own biases, but it was, the Foundry is being horribly mismanaged.
Yeah, please let me know.
I will let you know, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Associate Senator Zhao. You have 45 seconds.
So I was wondering if there's an annual budget report that we can access as a part of the policy of the transparency for the budget for the housing and dining services.
Yes, I put together a budget book every year. that is shared with all of the Housing and Dining Services staff, and I'm happy to share that with anybody else. It's a public document. We're finalizing our budget book for this fiscal year right now, but should be available soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And since there are 6 minutes left, 6 minutes, 6 seconds, I apologize. Officer Ricard was the only one left, but he was on, okay. He was on the secondary speakers list. So, sorry, Officer Ricard. Thank you, Mari, for coming.
Thank you all
Let's
for
give her a
inviting
round
me.
of applause. Fantastic. Now, with that out of the way, we'll move into confidence business. Will the parliamentarian please put 2 hours on the confidence clock? We'll start with Bill 5205, providing funding for first aid and CPR/AED training. If a chair wants to maybe go over changes that were made in committee.
I would. I don't have my, hold on. No, I don't have it. I'll let Chair Rencher do her report first while I pull up the findings for Mike.
Yeah, so in budgetary, one of the major changes that you will see is that instead of one session of training being added with 50 people in that session, this training is being broken down into 2 to 25 people. And that just ensures that there's enough time to make sure that we can find enough people to fill that session, since having 50 people on like a list is a little bit hard to keep track of, and to ensure accountability that people actually come. So you'll see that, and then there will be a change showing that 10 ASCSU officials can come and sign up for each training session as well. And then the sunset clause was extended to help accommodate for planning for 2 sessions.
And then University Affairs Committee added a therefore clause to ensure that some ASCSU officials could sign up, but also allowing students to have an equitable chance of getting in, because as members who have looked at this piece of legislation, it was just, it made sense. It was a conflict of interest for us to get first seats when other folks would need it. University Affairs Committee endorsed this with unanimous consent.
Thank you. So regarding the edits, does the author consent to these edits?
I consent.
Thank you. So with that being said, I'll open up 20 minutes of discussion and debate on this bill, starting with the first raised placard. Chair Doyle.
It is the opinion of the College of Engineering that this bill should not be supported, as it is open to only a limited number of people for the price it is requesting. I yield.
Thank you, Senator Jeets.
So as a trained lifeguard and someone who's starting down the process of being a trained EMT, I fully support this, and I think I can speak for most, if not all, of my constituents when I say that this is an amazing bill. Recently, in the residence hall that I live in, Corbett Hall, somebody at a party passed out and stopped breathing. So nobody there knew what to do, or nobody there was trained in the appropriate measures to take. And I think training people on our campus and in our community would be amazing. And I yield.
Thank you. Any other points of discussion, debate? Senator Hill. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I like this bill a lot. I talked to someone, I was in college council the other day, and I was mentioning that to my, it's because we're a bunch of pre-med and pre-vet nerds. And we do this, we live for this kind of stuff every day. And so when I heard about the CPR bill, I got very excited. I want to thank the author for taking the time to write this. I'm really impressed. Honestly, I think this is a really, really good bill. And most people on my college council approved this bill, and it's just what I saw, and I just think it's amazing. So I would strongly encourage a yes vote on this, because we need more people to have this training available, because CPR and AED training is someone's like passed out on the floor, you're just gonna be like, oh, you gotta actually, you have the ability to help them. And so, yeah, I think that's good. That's all I have. I urge we vote yes on this. Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time, and I motion exhaust the speaker list.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? After I add Associate Senator Kelly.
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Alex.
Yeah, he's on the speaker's list. Is there a second to exhaust the speaker's list? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Senator Correa.
Mr. Speaker, would it be possible for me to speak at the end?
Sure.
That's reserving time, that's specifically not allowed,
No worries. I think this is a beautiful piece of legislation. I did hear concerns with some senators brought some concerns regarding, oh, it's $8,000 for only 50 students. But I would like to let it be known that the 50 students don't actually benefit from training. It is the students or the people next to them that benefit from this training, because if I learn CPR, I cannot administer that on myself. I'll be administering that on somebody else. So to say that $8,000 is just for 50 people is absurd. It's more like $8,000 is what's going to help save at least one student's life. If $8,000 could save at least one student's life, then this is a phenomenal piece of legislation, and I would encourage everybody within this chamber to vote yes on this. Thank you, and I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Associate Senator Barbone, were you aware of kind of what it just means to exhaust the speaker's list? If not, I don't see a problem with adding them to the speaker's list. That's fine. Okay. So for those of you that are new, exhausting the speaker's list just essentially means that no one past that point can be added to the speaker's list. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Director Silverhart, I believe, is on Zoom.
Yes, thank you. I would like to preface with saying that I believe the intention behind this bill is fantastic. I think knowing first aid and CPR is super important. I would like to point out, though, just kind of from personal experience, it can be hard to recruit people for events like this. I am an RA within Corbett, and there was a kind of special offering for residents of Corbett, specifically within my dorm, where students could pay $10 in order to get CPR certified. After I think 9 students had paid to get CPR certified, they paid about $10 each. Only 2 people actually showed up to the event. And given this is very small scale and this is not something that ASCSU was involved with, but it still kind of shows the potential for an event like this to potentially flop. Given that it's $8,000, that's a lot of money that we're potentially losing depending on how many students actually show up. And maybe this is something the author can explain a little more, but I'm still confused as to why we are not able to pair with the rec center. The benefits of pairing with the rec center is they already have a program in place. They already do all of their marketing, and students know to go to the rec center in order to get CPR and first aid certified. And the cost at the rec center is also much lower. It's only $90 per student. Like I said, they already have a system in place, and with it only being $90 a student, if we added $1,000 to this bill and made it $9,000, that could cover 100 students, which is double the amount listed in this bill right now. So I would definitely encourage everybody to consider that. And if there's space for the author to speak as to why we cannot be pairing with the rec center, I would love to hear that, because I'm still a little confused.
Would you yield to the author then, Director Silverhart?
Yes, thank you.
If you want to speak, Senator Laffey.
Yeah, thank you for those concerns, Director Silverhart. So I know we talked about this when the bill was initially presented, and I can give my reasons again for why it didn't go to rec center. I was very surprised that this bill was in committee for 3 or 4 weeks, and no one came to committee and talked about the rec center. I would have loved to have the discussion. So with the rec center, it's $91 plus $13 for a CPR mask which comes out, oh goodness. Calculator didn't do that right. $104. Unless someone has a CPR mask, which most students who'd be doing this for the first time don't. It's not something that you would just have unless you've actually done a CPR training. So it is $104. Talking to talking to different people who have taken the training, both students and administration, they have told me that this is probably not the best training to do. I've done research, as I said before, all these different organizations, American Heart Organization, American Red Cross. I've spent many hours emailing the directors of these programs, talking to them on the phone. I can confidently say that I would not feel comfortable spending one dime of Senate's money on the rec center, given what I have found out about what they've done, how they emailed me. The director wrote this was the coordinator for campus recreation wrote to me in an email that, let me find it. Here at the rec, they teach a CPR AED first aid for the professional rescuer, which means you are receiving a training in advanced cardiac emergency care, as well as some illnesses and other advanced first aid emergency care, and that it's different than a lay responder CPR course. So sometimes when you're doing stuff like that, like this, what I've kind of realized organizing other group projects and other things for individuals is that sometimes there's too many red flags when you head down a path and you just can't do that. I would not feel comfortable, like I said, spending a dime of Senate's money on the rec center program. And because of that, that's not what this bill encompasses. As I said before, the American Red Cross, they do this all the time. They do this every day. The people who are going to come, they're going to show up, they're going to know exactly what they're doing. And the people who come to the training are going to learn exactly what they need to know to save someone's life. They do this all the time. And so that is why I chose the Red Cross Center, talking to my constituents, talking to people from other colleges, academic advisors, that kind of thing. So that's why we not choose the rec center. That's why we chose the American Red Cross over the rec center. I yield back to you, Dr. Silverhart.
Just to provide a quick point of clarification, there was inquiry by members of the University Affairs Committee into that. It was the same answer that was provided, but I wanted to correct that for the record. And that CSU Campus Recreation does teach American Red Cross courses to CSU students.
Cool. Is the yield back to me?
Yes.
Iconic. Personally, I just find it hard to believe that there would be a rec center having CPR classes in place that wouldn't be benefiting the students and wouldn't be teaching students and faculty what they need to know. And kind of on top of that, the example I provided, these students in Corbett that were offered this course were specifically health and exercise science students. And personally, I find it very difficult to believe that just the average, we would find enough or 50 average lay people to do CPR for free. I just feel like, I don't know, things personally are not adding up for me. And I can see this potentially being an event that doesn't have the turnout that we are wanting. We're wanting 50 people to show up. And given that programs outside of the rec center that have tried to do CPR just across campus or across different like specialty groups have flopped. And I've also been in correspondence with the rec center, and they said that their classes usually fill up automatically because students know that's the place to go. They also said there's things in place where students can be sponsored. Yeah, I'm personally confused as to how a rec center would have CPR classes that aren't teaching people CPR skills. I yield my time.
Thank you. Officer Bakari. I yield to redundancy. Thank you. Senator Wright.
I yield to redundancy.
Parliamentarian Sonarkar.
I agree with Senator Ditz and Senator Correa. This is a very well-written piece of legislation. I have witnessed 3 events during the RAM welcome events where people just passed out and nobody knew what to do. So I request the Senate to vote aye on this bill. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Senator Taylor.
I would just like to say a couple of things. To begin, I would like to say that Senator Laffey has definitely looked into all of the options and spoken with people on and off campus, and definitely just looked at all of the available options. And so a massive thank you for doing that. Second, a lot of discussion has been on the amount of people that might take this. And I don't see why that is such a huge issue, because if we have 10 people who go and take this class, that's 10 people who now know how to save somebody's life in a situation that they might need to. I will just end also by saying that we in the Student Body Senate have one goal, and that is to benefit the student body of CSU. And that is absolutely what this bill does. So I will be voting yes on this, and I advise that all of you vote yes too. Thank you. I yield.
Associate Senator Kelly.
Sorry, really quick before Kelly goes, I just want to make a quick point of order that the members of the legislative cabinet that don't have voting rights can't voice their opinion. So please disregard parliamentarian senator's opinion. Sorry, even though it's.
Point of order, there is no such thing.
Yes,
They can say whatever they want to.
yeah, that's not true.
Okay, I believe that the arguments posed have been very valid on both sides. In the end, this is $8,000 that's going towards trainings. And if only 3 people show up for both, that's $6, but that's $8,000 going towards 6 people. And in the end, this is supposed to be for 50 people. And also, there's CPR training that has this already been said at the rec center that can be, that this $8,000 can be going towards to just fund for students who have a separate program of trainers coming on an off day to train students separately and do something for students, and not have the full training program, but just teach them CPR and not have a full intense training like they're saying is at the rec right now, and just have CPR. I feel like there's other ways to use 8K and not have it be this much money going towards it. In the end, CPR is very, very crucial to learn for anybody. I'm CPR trained, and I think it's good to know. There's been many incidents on campus where if people were CPR certified, it wouldn't have happened. But you can't blame it on people not being CPR certified, because it's a very scary moment to see somebody pass out in front of you. And you can't blame it on people not going to, you can't blame it on anybody, because a lot of people just don't want to go to classes because they don't think that the class is beneficial. So in the end, I believe that you should vote no on this bill, because there's better resources, and $8,000 isn't worth it if there's only going to be a handful of people that may or may not show up. Sorry.
Thank you. And with that, the speakers list has been exhausted, so we're now in the period of voting.
Mr. Speaker, I motion to vote by roll call.
Well, that's the default, Senator Hill. I would entertain a motion to do it by placard,
I
however.
want a motion to do it by secret ballot. I
Secret
think there's a
ballot.
lot of different voices and different opinions in this room, and I think it would just be better for everyone if it's done by secret ballot. I second that.
Okay. All those in favor of voting by secret ballot, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we'll do that vote by placard then. So all those in favor.
Information requires 2/3 since it's changing.
Thank you, Senator Hill. So all those in favor of doing this vote by secret ballot. Please raise your placard. I got it.
Keep them up, keep them up. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Were there any on Zoom?
8, 9, 10.
One? I counted 19 the first time.
Yeah. Oh, Ricky, raise it up. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
So 21. There's one on Zoom. Okay, all those opposed? And abstentions. Okay, so those don't even count.
Can you ask Senator Duncan what is he voting for? He just raised his hand.
Senator Dinson, what's your vote for? Is it to do it by secret ballot or not, or abstention? That it wasn't clear when you raised your hand on Zoom.
To not do secret ballot. Sorry.
Okay. So that changes it to 11. No, because the abstentions. Well, yeah, I think it should be. Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. The 2/3 threshold was not met, so this will by default be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll. Oh, and if you're an associate senator that's called, but you're not filling in for a senator, just say that you're not allowed to vote. That makes sense. Thank you.
Officer Bukhari.
Oh, yeah. That might be a, yeah, pick any other, should I just go? It's just on Zoom. Yep. Just on Zoom.
Senator Abu Dhabi. I abstain.
Who?
Chair Osborne.
No, he's not.
I'm not able to vote. Oh, that's right. Senator Amy. No. Associate Senator Barron. Associate Senator Barron. That's right. Okay. Senator Bouchard. I abstain. Senator Correa.
Yes.
Senator Denson.
No.
Senator Epperson.
Abstain.
Senator Godshaw. Senator Johnson.
Yes.
Senator Juarez.
Not here.
No.
Oh, on Zoom.
Senator Kilburn.
Yeah.
Senator Kramer.
Abstain.
Senator Laffey. Yes. Senator McCall.
No.
Senator Nguyen.
Abstain.
Senator Paraiso.
No.
Senator Reese.
Yes.
Senator Sanchez.
No.
Senator Taylor.
Yes.
Senator Dietz.
Yes.
Senator Ayala.
No.
Senator Hill.
Aye.
Senator Ritter.
No.
Senator Schmidt.
No.
Senator Morgan,
No.
Associate, Senator Melchior,
Yes.
Senator Weaver, Associate Senator Chacon. No. Senator Kelly,
Abstain.
Associate Senator Laffey,
Yes.
Senator Godshall left.
Thank you.
Senator Naim. Senator Nyambe,
What? Oh, okay. Thank
Senator Nyambe.
He left.
He left.
Okay. Associate Senator Kelly. I can't vote. Associate Senator Lutz,
Point of information, Teddy said he voted.
When?
I believe he was on the chat. No.
I'll check my Slack.
Associate Senator Lutz,
I can't vote.
Associate Senator Winston,
Which physical person can't vote?
Associate Barbone,
I cannot vote.
Senator Wright,
Yes.
Associate Senator Porstoxy,
I cannot vote.
Associate Senator, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to say your last name.
Sorry, no.
You, yeah, Kimberly, can you vote? Okay,
Voting in the absence of Senator Godshall, yes.
No, that's for Thompson, yeah.
Point of order, my name was called.
Is there still more to go on the? There's still attendance list?
Chair Salazar.
Aren't you?
Yeah, chairs get to vote.
My name was not called either. My name was also not called.
Okay, so, if everyone who wasn't called, can you just raise your hands? Okay, and then we'll get, I believe,
okay, I
Senator-
do apologize, I was under the impression that chairs cannot vote.
No worries.
Okay, so I guess we'll just go down the line if that makes sense. Elizabeth, for you first.
Yes, and yes.
Oh.
Hi.
I think, okay, so I think that was Senator Nyambe. So. Nyambe.
I'm voting in the negative.
I'm voting in place of Justin Melka or Senator Melka, and I'm voting yes.
No.
Or no, next one.
Associate Senator Winehouse.
Yes.
No. Also no.
And then Senator Ritter.
Sorry, what was the question?
Did you vote or no?
I did vote.
Oh, okay,
But no.
never mind.
Sorry.
Did we get everyone? Oh, Chair Schumer.
Yes.
Okay.
My hand's raised, but you can't see me.
On Slack.
Pardon?
There's people on Slack who have not voted yet.
On Slack or Zoom? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so folks in Zoom, if you could just in the chat indicate what your vote is rather than saying it like with your voice, please. Just so it's easier.
I think so. I think it's not large.
It's a no.
So should I share about that? Sure.
Could I motion to like a 5-minute recess?
We're almost done. We're very close. I'm sorry. You could, yeah, if you want to. Okay,
Like before the vote?
after, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Is there anyone else who did not get a chance to vote that didn't put it in the zone? Fantastic.
Gonna be a tiebreaker next.
No. Thank God I don't have to be a tiebreaker. The vote of 18 to 70 to 6, this bill passes. Okay, so there is a motion for a 5-minute recess. Is there a second? All those in favor of taking a 5-minute recess, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions, okay. Be back here at 8.
Touch my guy.
Oh, I did.
All right, everybody. Settle down. Okay, so we will now move on to Bill 5208, the biannual town hall with CSU PD. If a chair would also like to go over any edits made to that bill.
I can start. So there weren't many edits other than like some wording changes and some clarification on the budget breakdown, making sure that that budget breakdown is actually used. And we added information on that. Other than that, it was mostly wording that was changed on this.
University Affairs Committee looked over this one. I'm pretty sure we made the same wording changes. So really quickly, we changed Senate General Fund to ASCSU fund balance, and then we updated the sunset clause to be May 31st, 2023 instead of May 2023. University Affairs Committee discharged this with unanimous consent.
Thank you. So with that, I'll now open it. Oh, well, first, does the author consent to these amendments?
I do consent.
Thank you. So with that, we'll do 20 minutes of discussion debate, starting with the first race placard. Chair Doyle.
It is the opinion of the College of Engineering that this bill passes. I yield.
Thank you, Senator or Associate Senator Kelly. Senator, thank you.
I motioned the previous question.
Is okay. So all those in favor of leaving the period of discussion debate and going into voting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? I would also entertain a motion.
Motion to pass it to unanimous consent.
Is there any dissent to that motion? Seeing none, this bill passes unanimously. Congratulations. All right. And the last bill on the docket, Bill 5209, changing Diversity and Inclusion Caucus to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Affairs Committee. If the chairs would like to present those edits.
I can go first this time, if that's okay with you, Chair Rencher.
So for internal affairs, we made changes to reflect new changes and additional changes that needed to be made to the Senate bylaws, including like what the description would be, where they would have to do, what they would have to do, actual like requirements. And then we also made a couple of word choice edits, and that was where those primarily big, huge changes. So.
And then what other committee was this sent to budgetary as well? Okay.
So in budgetary, we mainly discussed where the pay would be coming from for this, and we clarified that it would not be coming from like Senate discretionary or anything, because we have enough in our payroll for this position can be paid for the remainder of that spring semester from ASCSU's payroll.
Thank you. So with that, do the authors consent to these changes?
Yes. Yes.
Very cool. Were you the only two authors on the bill? Fantastic. So with that, I will enter into a period of 20 minutes of discussion and debate. I saw. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
I'd like to add, not sure exactly on the wording, but whereas I think it's a therefore clause that says that the interim chair until an election is had, I'm assuming the election will probably be next week,
Until the election is had, the interim chair will be the current diversity and inclusion caucus chair.
Can you repeat?
I can accept that change.
So therefore be it hereby enacted. Sure, yeah, the last therefore clause. Just add a new one at the bottom. Minus above the where it's getting sent to one though. Yes, right there. Yeah, that's fine. And it doesn't really matter where it goes.
What do you want me to?
Enter, therefore be it hereby further enacted. That the interim chair until an election can be held shall be the current chair of the diversity and inclusion caucus. On the Adrian Salazar. And then will you be semicolon and? Thank you.
It's instead in diversity instead of an R, could you put a T?
Oh.
Is that all? Senator, thank you. So now with that being said, 20 minutes of discussion, debate. Chair Doyle.
I just wanted to ask if we could change the therefore clause that said being indicated to enacted.
Sorry.
It's the one below it too.
Oh, so it was from what you copied.
I'm sorry.
Okay, any other edits like that before we go into discussion debate?
Current is also misspelled.
Oh.
Associate Senator Lafayette.
I believe there should be an and after Salazar and before the comma.
And then just really quick, can you do the same thing to the one above? I know, but. Anything else before we move on? Okay, 20 minutes of discussion and debate, starting with the first raised placard. Okay, Senator Correa.
There we go again. All righty, with this piece of legislation. This bill aims at changing a caucus to a committee. Let's look at the roles of a caucus and a committee, especially a committee. The goal of a committee is that they accept legislation, propose amendments, and discharge them back to Senate. Whereas a caucus doesn't necessarily do this. A caucus discusses on certain issues, while they can make proposals, those proposals aren't the same as the proposals made by committee. And I believe that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Caucus, or in this case, is this a D&I caucus, can do the very things that they aim on doing with this bill. They can do the same things while being a caucus. If we look at this financially, we are spending, I believe, about $2,000, $2,000 and change on the chair every year. We add that up for 10 years, and it's more than $20,000 that we are spending on a chair position that we currently have at no cost. When we were discussing the CPR bill, a lot of you all had concerns about $8,000 being spent on a small group of people. Well, now it's $20,000 a year. $20,000 over the span of 10 years. And we all know there are going to be increments, so more than $20,000. So from a financial point of view, it does not make sense to switch this caucus to a committee. I think it works very well as a caucus and it should stay that way. We
Point of
also,
information, this is coming out of payroll, well, not Senate, so those are two different funds that
it's still
our bill is coming out of, and what the payment of the chair is coming out of.
it's still payroll, it still comes from the same exact place students pay money, so there is no difference. Which is why from a financial point of view, this does not make sense to me, and the caucus works phenomenally fine. If you all do want to make changes to pieces of legislation, discuss that in the caucus, show up to actual committee and propose those changes. That is the best way that this can work. We have 3 different committees. Bills go to at least one committee. So if you would like to voice your opinions from a DEI lens, please show up to committee. Do not make a whole new committee. I would also like to point out that this committee, even though it says diversity, equity, inclusion, would not hold my opinions or my viewpoints on the same lens. This is specified to only a certain group of people and not everybody else. I'm going to speak about this from a personal point of view. You could just think about the time I ran for the internal affairs chair. And folks, look at this. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Had this happened on the other side, y'all all would have been mad. When I ran for IA chair, everybody on the other side of the aisle, at least half of them, asked me questions, not with the intention of getting an answer out of me, but with the intention of using it once I left the chamber. Is that really the inclusion y'all want to follow? I can guarantee that this caucus or this committee will not uphold the principles of inclusion when it comes to people like me or people that think like me, which is why from a financial point of view and from a personal point of view, I would ask everybody to vote no on this piece of legislation. Thank you, and I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair Salazar.
Hello, Senate. What a lovely day, isn't it? So like Senator Crayer said, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Caucus has you come to speak your opinion as much as you do for budgetary affairs, internal affairs, and all that stuff. So
Thank you.
mutually speaking, if you were to come to the DEI Affairs Committee, you could voice your concerns about diversity, equity, and inclusion, so it pertains to your perspectives and your own self-interest. So I personally endorse this bill. I think it is a nice way for all bills and lexes and resolutions to be looked at through meticulously, as it reads in the bill, through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. We've seen this in different bills. I'm pretty sure it was the DEI resolution that we've seen earlier in the semester. I think it was Chair Rancher's, Senator Bushara and Senator Abdunabi, their bills, as well as the town hall bill and the CPR bill. All of those encompass what diversity, equity, and inclusion sees and stuff like that for student legislation for students. And we want a more focused and committee that looks at this and looks at the self-interest of students. So as we talk about DEI and also initiatives, as a student body and as students of CSU that come into CSU under the principles of community and through CSU's acknowledgement of doing their own initiative of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we should be upholding that in the student body, and we should be fighting for it for all of our students. And it surprises me that it's taken this long for a committee to be even relevant within the Senate. And in caucus as well. I don't see many senators or associates that aren't usually SDPS offices or Ava Ayala from College of National Sciences and Christian Kilburn that I've seen from the caucus and Chair Doyle, where he and Sammy, Chair Trout. They've all come to support caucus, and Chair Doyle got our opinion on, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a resolution or a lex?
It was Alex.
It was Alex. Okay, so he personally came to get his like ideas of what we felt about the Lex. And personally, to me, that is what I want to see through Senate. And it's important that all other bills did the same thing. Especially because that was like the first Lex I've seen ever come to caucus, when senators and associates aren't necessarily required to come to any caucus. It's an optional thing where this should be a more mandatory like thing when we talk about how senators and associates are supposedly fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I yield.
Thank you, Chair Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Affairs Committee would be a really beneficial aspect for that. Having someone who's solely dedicated to D&I as a committee, where that committee can make those changes instead of having to entrust another body to do that, I think is really important. The big thing with caucuses right now is they can make suggestions to bills that they see, but there isn't really anything that says they, what says goes. It's separate of sending a bill to D&I caucus versus University Affairs Committee. In University Affairs Committee, we can change language of it, and we can, in committee, you can change a lot of languages so that better represents whatever that committee's jurisdiction is on. Whereas caucus, they can make those suggestions, but there isn't any enforcement to that besides just goodwill. And as that has gotten us very far in a lot of aspects, having a committee that solely looks at it from specifically that lens, I think is really important, especially for the betterment of our community members. So I would like members to keep that in mind. That's all I have to say on that. Yeah, I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And I wrote down here, Kelly, I don't know which of okay, it was Associate Senator Kelly. Thank you. Senator Kilburn.
Yeah. All right. So starting off, I just want to say many valid concerns have been pointed out by a wide variety of people in our bills, including like our vocabulary and our language. And I think that's something that's like extremely important for us to continue doing. And it's a lot easier when we have an entire committee dedicated to, hey, this language isn't inclusive. Hey, this might result in an unintended consequence that might hurt students. And aside from that, I also think it's important to make this a committee, because if we were to just take D&I caucus suggestions and bring that to another committee, we would be effectively wasting their time, because we have to justify why we're doing all these things when we're supposed to be talking about how this affects the internals of ASCSU or the university students or the budget. And I think that's just a waste of their time. And there's an entire purpose to those committees. Additionally, if I'm not wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, but payroll is completely separate from the Senate discretionary and the executive fund. So we're really not taking money away that isn't already being used. But even if it was coming out of the discretionary, I would argue that $2,000 is a small price to make our space more inclusive, diverse, and the things we do better represent the students we have. A lot of us here are privileged, and can't really see a lot of the unintended consequences of our actions. So I think it's really important for us to let other people point that out and be open to hearing it all out. And I think that's all I have to say. So I yield my time.
Thank you, Senator McCall.
Hi. So I first want to address the argument that D&I do the same things as a caucus. If that's the case, and any of the current committees were a caucus, it would be the same case. So I don't know why this is different here. And further, there's a claim that this is a very specific group, which I have to agree. The Diversity and Inclusion Caucus is to promote diversity and inclusion. So it would make sense that us senators who are representing the student diversity programs and services would be attending this caucus regularly. If you believe that this caucus is inappropriately represented, I urge you to start attending this caucus. Personally, I think that considering the roles that we're serving in, we would be some of the most appropriate people to be attending the group. Our very first principle of community at this institution is inclusion, which is directly embedded into the D&I caucus. Why then would we believe that this is not urgent to make it a committee?
if the university has come to an agreement that this principle is one of the utmost important for our students to uphold, why wouldn't we do that? I yield.
One clarification. Howdy, y'all. Just to update you guys. You all, Internal Affairs Committee meets Mondays 12 to 1. University Committee meets Mondays 4 to 5. Women's Caucus meets 4 to 5. Conference Committee with Wednesdays 11 to 12. Executive Cabinet, if you want to come, Wednesday 5 to 6. Diversity and Inclusion Caucus, Thursdays 3 to 4. Constitution Caucus meets Thursdays 4 to 5. Budgetary Affairs, Thursdays 5 to 6. Legislative Cabinet, I mean, you guys aren't invited. But if you want to come,
You're allowed to come to legislative.
just let us know. But these will be enforced following the break, so please attend, and then you'll have less questions and less fighting in the space. So that's my point of clarification. Thank you.
Did you see that shameless plug to go to? Oh my God.
That sounds more like a report personally, but
One go.
I
Okay,
get paid to go, my friend.
Senator Morgan.
So first, I just want to point out that historically, there has been a lack of DEI within the space, and that's important to consider, and important to consider the effects of white supremacy at all levels. And ultimately, I don't see why we should put a price on diversity and inclusion. That's the reason why the world, ASCSU, CSU is not equitable, inclusive, is because we're not putting change. We're not committing money in the sense to change. And again, pointing out the principles of community, inclusion is one of those commitments by the university. And early in the year, we did pass a resolution based towards diversity and inclusion. So while we're going back in our words, I know in that discussion, a lot of folks said that we want to do actual change, and this is one way to do that change. So if we want to put our action where our words are, then this is one way. And also, I feel like some personal feelings are getting in the way for all students to feel like they're included within this space, because ASCSU has historically been exclusive. So, and I just want to remind everyone that we represent our constituents. We don't represent our own opinions, our own views, and we should be thinking about all students while we're in this space. And ultimately, I don't get why students would not be for a diversity and inclusion caucus. Committee, sorry. And the fact that we even need to debate this shows that we need this committee. That's it, I go.
Thank you, Chair Aslan.
All right, so it's important for us to all to remember that it's our responsibility as members of ASCSU to uphold the best interests of our students. And in the student body of CSU, we often leave many of us behind. Even though we try to uphold the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion to the best of our ability, as individuals, we are not fully able to account for all points of views for all students. That is not a failing of us, it is a simple fact. As a member of ASCSU who holds many identities that are marginalized in society and on this campus, and in this space, it is often feeling like many of us representing SDPS offices and many of us holding marginalized identities are left behind or targeted and called out when we try to present a unified front or any form of dissenting opinion. Right now, the caucus can only make suggestions for changes. They have virtually little to no power. Now, they can always come to committee, and some of them have come to committee to voice their opinion, and their suggestion, let their suggestion be heard. But in the end, if that suggestion gets put into the legislation, is in the hands of the body of the committee, not in the hands of the caucus member who showed up. So that allows for a lot of personal bias to come into the place. Sometimes people just don't like the person making the suggestion, and they'll allow that to guide their vote. And if we have and create a dedicated space for DEI, it will allow us to better serve every single student in our student body. And as a committee, the chair would have to remain impartial, allowing for every single person's opinion to be heard and spoken equitably. And that final decision for whether it makes a change to legislation will always default to the body hands of the committee as a whole. It's not a simple one person holds the power, meaning everyone who enters the space of the committee will have an equitable chance to be heard so long as that committee runs correctly. And in committee bylaws, there are many steps that you can take if you feel the chair is not upholding that position correctly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
Thank you. We had 8 people left on the primary speakers list and 1 person on the secondary speakers list.
Motion to extend.
Extend or exhaust.
Most exhaustive speaker list.
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor of exhausting the speakers list, say aye.
I would like to be added to the speakers list.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. All right, Director Welch. That one didn't work.
Alrighty, so halfway, I feel like I would say it would be redundant, so I'm not gonna say it, but when I was an associate senator 2 years ago, when this was created, the Diversity Inclusion Caucus, I, as someone who didn't really know that much about ASCSU, thought that this would be a committee, like I was like, it needs to be a committee. I honestly didn't think it ever should have been a caucus. I honestly still think that. Not attacking the chairs are always great. The Diversity Inclusion Caucus is something, or diversity inclusion is something that like should always be reflected in our bills and our elections, and having a committee to look at them better is a really good way. And I believe that if I, as an associate senator who knew almost nothing and wanted to be a committee 2 years ago, and now even more experienced Senate, is like, yes, we very much need this committee. And that all of you should vote yes on this bill, because would be a very good committee and be very helpful in the working of ASCSU in a whole as well. Because it's actually people who most likely want to go with this one, compared to other 3, I feel like this one has the most impact on our branch as well. So thank you, and I give my time.
Thank you, Vice President Sandoval.
So kind of echoing what Director Welch had said, when I came into the space last year as a senator, I wondered also why we didn't have a DE&I committee rather than a caucus. And I fully support having a committee because I believe, as it has been said multiple times, we represent our constituents. Me being a person of color, a female presenting person, but also non-binary, I represent a lot of constituents. Being able to go to my people and say, hey, ASCSU is in fact committed to diversity, is in fact committed to inclusion, and here is why, I think is so important and needs to be addressed. There are many people who look like me who are not wanting to come into this space because they do not feel safe because of the lack of diversity and inclusion. I believe that passing this bill and making a diversity and inclusion committee is one step closer to show all of our students that yes, we are committed to inclusion, we are committed to diversity, and here's how we are going to work for it. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Johnson.
So this will mostly be just echoing. If the university is moving towards a more DE&I focus, that should also reflect in our Senate space and should be also shown to the student body. I yield.
Thank you, Chair Rancher.
I think the intention of this bill is very good in that, we do want to make sure we're including students on campus and that we're encouraging belonging for everyone and that everyone feels like bills are being written in a way that makes students' voices heard. I would also like to point out that the purpose of a caucus is a wonderful thing and that a committee is not better than a caucus just because chair gets paid. A caucus still has a wonderful position in Senate. It's supposed to act as a uniting body that brings together different aspects of ASCSU. The Constitution details that for its job description. And I think the fact that we have a D&I caucus helps to ensure that there's more communication between committees and that caucus can attend all the committees and make sure in all aspects of the writing, in the internal aspects of writing, in the budgetary side of things, university side of things are written in a way that will be equitable for students and have diverse voices. So I think separating it out into a committee could might not do this, but it kind of puts it as separate, as something that's saying, oh, like DEI will focus on in this committee, but the other one's not so much. Whereas that is something that should be included in all aspects of the bill writing. I yield.
Thank you. Is it Senator Sobi?
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly what I wanted to say, that it's a concern. It's an open question also, but I think if people that are already less prone to speak in public wall themselves off and then are given more power, which will prevent them from promoting discourse in this Senate, I think that's a negative. Unless, I mean, I'm open to have my mind changed, but I agree with that point. What I'm trying to say is we should promote discourse in this Senate as opposed to walling off people that are of minor backgrounds. Like, this is the place to voice your opinion instead of having power which will not promote you to do that in here. It'll inhibit you from speaking your mind openly in this Senate if you're given more power, which is already an issue.
Thank you. Senator AP.
As it is now, students have to go and sit in hostile environments in order to make sure their identities are being represented on legislation. And when we do, it is seen as an afterthought. It is extremely important to have a group specifically dedicated to being diversity and inclusion focused. There needs to be a dedicated committee where we know DEI initiatives will be focused on for the better. I'd like to read the establishment of the ASCSU Diversity and Inclusion Caucus as standing body. Abstract. This bill seeks to establish the ASCSU Diversity and Inclusion Caucus as a standing caucus of ASCSU, with membership offered to all students with the particular intent of progressing diversity and inclusion initiatives across campus by working with students from CSU, all 3 branches of ASCSU, student organizations, faculty/staff, and anyone who wants to be involved. The goal of this caucus is to promote the sense of belonging, equity, and a voice for every student on our campus at Colorado State University. Whereas, with no direct caucus on campus to foster ideas relating to the diversity and inclusion, it is crucial that we progress in initiatives that give every student a sense of belonging through Colorado State University. And whereas ASCSU promotes the importance of representing the student body, and to do so, we must work on communicating, collaborating, and writing legislation for marginalized identities on our campus. And whereas ASCSU advocates for students on a university, local, state, and national level, and must demonstrate our commitment and passion to end racism, bias, and inequitable experiences towards people within our community. And whereas, with ASCSU being an exclusive and harsh environment to many, this space can help not only change our campus culture, but also work to build community from within our Senate body. Moving on to what I'm saying. This caucus was originally created with the intent of making change, but I'll be honest, as it is now, this caucus is there for show. Point blank, so many members of this space, past, present, and future, don't see the importance of DEI, and this committee will help to ensure that we are taking that step in the right direction. Do better, ASCSU. The only downside is white supremacy might have less of a chance of slipping through. Oh no, I yield.
Senator Kelly.
Alrighty, so I support this mainly because CSU's big thing and ASCSU is saying, oh, we're all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think we should put our money where our mouth is and make the committee. It's actually more impactful, I feel. For a more selfish reason, I kind of need another committee to go to because 2 of them are taken up by a lab, and then budgetary is taken up by my college council. So more selfish, I kind of need another committee to go to, but 100% support it. I yield.
At this time, if anyone needs to leave, you will still be allowed to vote. We will let you know that you are allowed to vote. So, Senator Ritter, you are next.
Hi, y'all. Yeah, so lots of discussion. I just want to say, well, I served as the D&I caucus chair last year, as well as working with the previous chair, Diego Tovar, the year before. And so I just wanted to say, I was actively working with Chair Tovar the year before. Wow, it's been so long ago. But as the original author creating the bill, for this. I wrote it with the intention of eventually turning it into a committee. And I think it's very important, especially with the language we use in the space. This is something we really need in the space, as there is a large lack of DEIJ in the space, especially with the correct language and inclusivity that lacks in our space. This is also a caucus that's allowed for students outside of ASCSU to feel welcome in the space, and there's so much more work done in the previous and current chairs of legislation. There's a large amount of senators that participate in working on legislation outside of SDPS, and like my constituent United Chair Salazar said, that's what we want to see. We want to look at bills and Lex's resolutions, et cetera, as a committee, and that's the way it's been at the caucus in the past and currently now. And that's why, we believe that should be turned into a committee, because I think that's really important to have in our space. And there are senators that want to utilize this and have been utilizing it as is. And that's why, that's a space for them to use for their bills and things like that. Years later, it's time this caucus does so much work for senators should be changed to a committee now. It allows more than a suggestion of DEIJ in our space and into a more mandated change. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Ayala, you are next on the speakers list if you'd like to.
Sorry, catch my breath for a real quick second. I do have kind of a lot to say because I have been listening, and I did just want to speak last and kind of address everything because I am one of the authors of this bill. So please bear with me as I'm bearing my thoughts. So I know a lot of people have already touched on this and just the difference between a caucus and a committee. Caucuses can suggest changes, committees make them, and they are presented to the floor. I'm just going to kind of go through some of the stuff I heard. The payment, I feel like, is not going to matter in 10, 20, 30 years. How much it's going to cost us, even though it's coming out of student fees. I understand we always think about money and we always think about pricing the Senate because we have power over the money of what we spend and what we do with it. But the difference, I would say, between the CPR bill that we just passed and this position is that CPR bill uses $8,000 in this 1 year versus the $20,000 over the proposed 10 years that was said, which is about 40% of the pay in 1 year. I'm just I'm gonna skip something that I wrote because I just feel like it's not necessary to say. I want to say, as a writer of this bill, I understand that we are people, we have our thoughts and we are emotions, and it's completely valid. And if you feel that your voice is not being heard, and if you feel that there is more in that you are not being represented when it comes to DEI, and you're not being represented when it comes to D&I, because that's what the caucus is right now, that I encourage you to, or anyone, to share how you feel with the people in power, people who have those positions. Please come talk to Chair Salazar, come talk to me. I am the vice chair of the D&I caucus. But I encourage you to share those feelings respectfully. I don't think people are very open when they are yelled at or they are talked at. It does not encourage change. It does not invite conversation, but it invites arguments. And I wrote this bill with the intention of making sure that we spend less time in Senate trying to make edits on the floor and have certain time allocated about what we can spend, or have certain time allocated to talk about what we can have certain time allocated to talk about what we need to, and spend that whole time addressing DEI specifically, instead of going to internal affairs and spending half their time talking about it when they have other stuff they need to talk about, university affairs or budgetary affairs. I understand those committees are still here and that we can still go in them and talk about stuff, because I have gone to every single one of those committees and talked about this DEI bill. I went to every committee that this DEI bill passed through, and I even talked to Chair Trout about this bill, and just making sure that I didn't step on anyone's toes, making sure that this is its own section and that doesn't cover anyone else's. And I understand that we can still go to other committees, but this just makes it a better and a safer place, I feel like, to talk. And I also feel like, or at least I think this is true, that the DEI caucus has had the most turnout out of any of the caucuses. We have had executives come, we have had students from campus come, we have had multiple senators from here who aren't from SDPS offices. I am not from the SDPS office, come and talk and share their opinions and their thoughts, and we have opened them and we have invited them into this space. So I think making this a committee just, it gives us all of our hours, and it just makes that space, I'd say, a little bit more open, because now you have a reason to come. Like with caucuses, you don't have a reason to come because you don't have to show up. It's not going to give you your office hour. It's not going to do much for you. But now that we have open, like now, if this was to turn to committee, you have a reason to come. You can get your office hour. You can sit and you can talk and you can speak to us. Even though we sit on two different sides of the aisle, it doesn't mean that we are separate. You can still talk to us, and I encourage people, and if you have any thoughts or opinions, I encourage you to come and talk to me. As a writer of this bill, I encourage you to come and talk to me and express your feelings. Because as Chair Salazar, if this becomes a committee, shall chair until elections are happening. Even though I probably will be booted out of my vice chair position, I still have some power over what happens. So I appreciate you guys letting me talk, and I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. That's it for the primary speakers list. Senator Correa, you're the only one on the secondary.
Firstly, I'd like to echo what Chair Rencher and Senator Sodi said, that but the caucus works perfectly fine. The caucus should remain a caucus and should not become a committee. I see absolutely no reason for it becoming a committee. It works phenomenally well as a caucus. If y'all do want changes to be made, anything that's decided in the diversity and inclusion caucus can be proposed during committees, because committees can make changes, as we all have said. So you can definitely show up to committees and propose all the changes. I do not see a valid logical reason for this committee to come to fruition. I think it works phenomenally well as a caucus, and it should remain as a caucus. That will be all. I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The default for this would, of course, be roll call. But I would entertain a motion.
I motion for secret ballot.
Yeah. So all those in favor of using secret ballot as the voting method, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. This passes.
Really quick.
Yeah.
One of the senators stepped out. If I could just get a 5-minute recess before the voting happens, just to. I know it might not seem like.
You can make that motion. Also going forward, like look around you as well for senators. If you see someone that was there and maybe they stepped off to the bathroom or something, make sure if they want to vote that they could come back. So try to contact that person, because you have to be present to vote. But I would entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess before we vote. Okay.
Before we go ahead, do the 5-minute thing, can we instead bring a ballot out? The senator just came out and bring the parliamentarian out to prove that it was hers, just so everyone is aware that it was her. And then do the 5-minute recess after we voted.
That works as well.
I'm still trying to get her to vote, but that way.
You want to rescind your motion? I do also believe that Senator Morgan left as well. So if someone wants to give a ballot to her, I'll rescind. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Are you willing to come in the hallway? Like, cool.
Okay, so we'll do this by secret ballot then. For and copy that. Yeah. So for those of you what? Yeah. So those of you who can vote, again, same procedure with voting on any piece of legislation. Yes means you support it. No means you don't. Abstention won't count for the overall vote total. That makes sense.
Here's my box. You can spend it. Oh, there's. Oh, yeah.
Are these just extras for our expectations?
Yeah. I can't go to work.
Okay, everyone, be back at 9:11, please. Thank you. Has everyone voted?
So technically, yeah. No. Yes. What you said is all of this kind of authors, right? Oh yeah, it's like if we have like changing something and they're like, I feel like we should codify. He's probably you change the schedule or like because he has like you should for a child.
I mean, this would be submitted by law rather than institution.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually I don't agree. You didn't go get your fair. No, I didn't. No. No.
I know.
No, we voted to be. Yeah, yeah. That's fantastic.
I don't want to do
That's wild.
I don't. No abstention. That's what it's.
You guys on the Zoom? You guys on the Zoom?
Make 3 out of 5. Yeah.
It literally is the same last week, one of the one this, but they're not.
Are we present to vote?
I know. Sorry. I think we should make a. Yeah. I hope it. Oh, yeah. That's great. That was unexpected. Yeah. It was. Oh, the rapid. Yeah. I can see that. Yes. Also, you can. Yeah.
Everyone can get to their seat, please.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. I'm not glad.
Right. Okay. So with a vote of 23 to 14 to 0, this bill passes.
Another information, Mr. Speaker, the bylaws amendment requires a 2/3 majority. The bylaws amendment. It requires a 2/3 majority. It is a bylaws amendment.
If someone could look for that in the bylaws, is it in the Constitution or the bylaws?
I mean, the bylaws.
I don't remember that being in there, so I'm looking.
What is the issue again?
This is a bylaws amendment. It requires a 2/3.
That's okay, Chief, I'm sorry. It's all right, Chief, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm looking.
That means the bylaws. Section of the bylaws.
Right, I'm still looking for the vote.
That be in files, the rule.
Yes.
Bylaws are required to be amended by a 2/3 vote of the Senate excluding abstentions. This is section 13, subsection A.
So, given that, there were 14 noes and 0 abstentions, this piece of legislation does not pass. All right, we'll now move into ending roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
I refuse beginning roll call, and then I move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay, so all those in favor of using beginning roll call as ending, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And I agree, I have the authority to adjourn. We're going to adjourn.
It's a great time.
Not, but I can talk to.